So you want to learn more about the Devil Summoner series? I get it, Raito is the best, but his games were the third and fourth entries in the series. Back in December of 1995, a game called Shin Megami Tensei Devil Summoner was released for the Sega Saturn and was re-released on the PSP 10 years later on December in 2005. This game will never see itself be published in the US, unfortunately. However, this does lead to an interesting note, and that this game is one of the few, if not the only spin-off titles with Shin Megami Tensei in its name. The SMT name is reserved for mainline series games, and the games we know that do have that name, like Personas 2 through 4, Digital Devil Saga, and etc., were an Atlas West decision. This was not the case in Japan, so it's cool to find out Devil Summoner has a special aspect about it, even if it's just a name. So the story is about you, the protagonist, a college student attacked by demons cause college and tasks weren't enough on your plate, until you're saved by Kyoji Kuzunoha. Yes, Kyoji Kuzunoha is a private detective and the title holder of Kuzunoha at this time. I mentioned in my previous video that one of the Kuzunoha families we know about are the Kyojis. He doesn't state his inheritance suffix, so we aren't sure how far the Kyojis have gone, but nonetheless, he has proved himself a capable summoner to inherit the Kuzunoha name. He's pretty cool too, because in the first boss, he would transform the demons into cards, which is one of the few special ailments available only in this game that makes them weak to fire. Even if the demons resist, absorb, or even null fire, it will overwrite that if inflicted by card. Because, you know, fire burns paper. Yeah, it's cheesy, but it's the 90s, so it's excusable. Also in this game and in the sequel, the protagonist uses a special device to summon demons. Usually in SMT, the summoners use a comp that contains a program created and modified by key characters throughout the series. They're usually equipped on a gauntlet, part of a headset, hell, even a DS. The only thing that matters is if the device contains the demon's summoning program. In Devil Summoner, it's a gun. Yeah, the demon summoning program is installed in a gun. Oh, and guess the name. It's Gump. Gun computer, because comp is short for computer. Yeah, I know, it's the 90s, just deal with it. Shortly after that battle, Kyoji will later end up dead, with you, the protagonist, unfortunately ending up in a dire situation with a dark summoner, who are summoners that act in the interest of self-gain. You initially meet one of Kyoji named Takashi, who is a turned vampire. The one you meet that corners you is Sid Davis, who uses a modified Bible that is actually a comp. Wait a minute. Vampires. And he looks so familiar and you hold the Bible. Don't tell me it's one of those JoJo references. Well, technically, this isn't a JoJo reference, but something Araki would reference in JoJo Part 6 with the antagonist Enrico Pucci bearing such a striking resemblance to Sid Davis. As many may know, Personas argue to have been inspired by JoJo's stance. I say argue because it has been stated Personas are based off Guardians, which was a mechanic used in SMT If, which are based off Guardian spirits, not stands. But I'll leave it up to you to decide that. That's a whole other ball game. These shared inspirations isn't just because JoJo is such a cultural phenomenon, but Kazuma Kaneko, the father of the majority of demon designs in Shin Megami Tensei, and mentor Shigenori Soejima, the current lead designer of the Persona series since the third one, has good relations with Hidehiko Araki, the author of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. They've even interviewed themselves, so if you're curious about that, I left links in the description to read a translation of their interview. In my opinion, I believe that both of them inspire each other because, well, kings support fellow kings. After you're killed, your soul then takes control of the corpse of Kyoji, and that's how the events begin in Devil Summoner. It was an interesting game that separated from the usual world is ending or has already ended scenarios commonly in SMT. It also began a lot of traditions used in current SMTs that also includes Persona. First, we're introduced with Dr. Victor the Gomaden. Dr. Victor serves as your demon fusion overseer for every single Devil Summoner game. Yes, that also includes the Raito Kuzunoha series. Just like Mito and Igor, he has transcended to continuously dwell in the art of demon fusion. Also, this is where the Frankenstein references begin. If you didn't know, Persona's Velvet Room assistants have names that are Frankenstein characters. Igor, Elizabeth, Theodore, Margaret, Caroline, and Justine are all Frankenstein characters. In addition, Devil Summoner fleshed out the demon negotiation system, specifically personality types. While previous games had demon negotiations, it was a very simple process with just questions whether you approach friendly or threatening, or maybe just a simple yes or no question. However, in Majin Tensei 2, part of the Majin Tensei sub-series, personality types were introduced, but it was only a couple that were in it. In Devil Summoner, they practically doubled the amount of personalities a demon can have when negotiating, really improving how you interact with demons, a feature that is used in, you guessed it, Persona 5. As well, the art and designs are more modern sci-fi looking than cyberpunk. Also a little trivia, so in the Persona 2 duology, we have the Kuzunoha detective agency owned by Daisuke Todoroki. Now, most point out Tamaki Uchida, who is the protagonist of SMT If, and appears in Persona 1 as well, because she is just a strong link that bridges SMT and Persona. Her existence is that link. However, Daisuke is another connection because Kyoji possesses him. He used to be a mediocre detective until suddenly obtaining motivation and confidence to complete his cases. Further evidence besides the personality change shows his brooch with the Kuzunoha emblem. Oh yeah, you gotta love how connected this whole series is. Moving on, the sequel to Devil Summoner was released on the Saturn again in 1997 called Devil Summoner, later re-released with additional content for the PS2 in 1999, and the West being thankfully blessed with a remake for the 3DS in 2012. In So Hackers You, the usual silent protagonist is part of a hacker group called the Spookies, making up of you, Spooky, the leader, Hitomi, 6, yu-ichi, and Lunch. The group's objective is investigating Paradigm X, a virtual 3D world created by Algonsoft with the approval of the city. Essentially, it's VR chat. But souls can enter the virtual world and take items out. What we learned after some time is that Paradigm X is actually a program designed to steal souls by the Phantom Society who Algonsoft is working with. Okay, so the Phantom Society was referenced in the first game by Sid Davis, as he says sometime in the game that he was sent by an organization to do deeds done in the first game. The organization that he mentions and was part of are the Phantom Society, made up of dark summoners and demons. As well, the society is known to be at war with the Kuzunohas. While it sounds cool that a secret society is at war with a reclusive detective clan, it's not pursued much after this game. However, that doesn't mean that has ended, because a major figure, no spoilers, in the Phantom Society mentions that the organization will always return. You know, the typical last words of a defeated villain. Compared to Devil Summoner 1, I absolutely loved So Hackers, and it drastically improved combat mechanics and even adding more demon personalities than there were in Devil Summoner 1. Also, I felt So Hackers is a bit more forgiving to newcomers, since Devil Summoner 1, even in the PSP remake, does not pull back any punches. For example, in the first dungeon of Devil Summoner 1, the first boss and certain failed demon negotiations can inflict sleep on you. Sleep in that game does not go away by itself and must be cured using a Chinsing, this is the translated name by the way of the item that cures the status effect, or a demon with Patra. However, you can't use items in battle if you're asleep. So if you unknowingly go into the boss battle without a fellow demon that has Patra, it's game over. So you need to go negotiate with demons to have some backup in the case you fall asleep, or more than likely you should probably get a Balgo, who is the only recruitable demon in that dungeon with Patra. But if you fail the negotiation and RNG decides to inflict sleep on you, then you have to run away in order to heal yourself from that condition. Meaning you must walk back and forth again until you encounter another Balgo and be successful in that negotiation. Yeah, So Hackers difficulty isn't as close to this, and maybe I'm exaggerating, but nonetheless, I wouldn't recommend beginners tackling on Devil Summoner 1. Regardless, Devil Summoner 1 and So Hackers have a very interesting place within the series. Atlus experimented with these games, and I believe it paid off, since the influence of these games continues till this day. And it's not just the negotiation personalities being in Persona 5, but the usage of apps, and So Hackers was used in Strange Journey and the Shin Megami Tensei 4 duology, and Strange Journey was released in 2009 in Japan. That's 12 years since So Hackers came out. Even if I didn't convince you to try and play these games, I hope you did learn how important these titles are, and maybe you can at least watch or read a playthrough on it. And with my Devil Summoner introductions completed, I thank you for watching, and until the next video, stay salty.